Welcome back. Back to our lead story about ECOWAS 50th anniversary. It was marked in Lagos earlier today. For this conversation, I am joined by Ambassador Joe Keshi, a renowned technocrat. Thank you so much for joining us. Ella Ezeadilieje, I beg your pardon, an international affairs analyst. You're going to have to tell me how to pronounce your name well. I am so sorry. Ezeadilieje, yes, that's it. As well as Bernerd Akede, who is joining me in the studio. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on this conversation. I think I'll start with my colleague here before I come to you guys. You were there, you covered the story. There's been a lot of conversations about 50. 50 is a big number. Were you impressed about what you saw?
I would say there was a lot of fanfare and celebration, looking beyond just the hall where we celebrated. I think it's a mixture of feelings, like the French would say, and there are a lot of Francophone African countries in ECOWAS, by the way, comme ci, comme ça, like this, like that. While there are things to celebrate, there are a lot more things to worry about, and there are things to look forward to for the future.
Let me bring Ambassador Joe Keshi in here. 50 years of being together, of doing business together, of arguing together, of solving problems together. What are the significant milestones for ECOWAS at this time?
The question, but I guess I get the piece of part of it. Look, 50 years, it's quite a good celebrate to recount both the successes and the challenges that ECOWAS has faced in the last couple of years. You need to understand that from the beginning, it had its fair share of problems trying to bring Anglophone and Francophone nations, together, particularly as it was still the period in which we are all just gaining, not too far away from having gained independence. And in the last couple of years, ECOWAS has spent a considerable amount of its time on security issues, conflict resolution. Even right now, as we speak, they are dealing with a number of issues related to democratic decline in a number of states. So, but when you look at what it has tried to achieve, the very first things it did, like the free movement of goods and services, which has really reasonably worked very well for members of the community. When you look at the trade liberalization, yes, when you look at the volume of trade that is officially, quoted, the truth that we must admit to ourselves is that the informal trade that is so recorded is far higher than the formal trade that you find within the, database of those who record the, trade liberalization. When you look at the highways that are being constructed between member states, I think they are modest. I call them modest achievements. We can only look forward that with some peace and stability, we can resolve a number of contradictions, the security issues, the democratic crisis. We can look forward that if ECOWAS begin to build on a number of experiences it's had gained in the last few years, that the next 50 years will probably be better than the last 50 years.
Bring Ella in here to respond to the same question. How is ECOWAS doing 50 years on? I know it's been a very, the last 3 years or thereabout have been very, very problematic for the region, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso pulling out of the regional bloc. But I wanted you to respond to my first question.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the question. For me, just like Bernard said, it's a bittersweet kind of feeling, and I'll explain. Sweet because, 50 years is a big number. So let's say ECOWAS is officially in midlife, and you know what comes with the midlife? It comes with the crisis, and that's exactly what we're experiencing right now. I first start with the benefits and what they have done and what we have gained. We have, the visa-free movement of people. We have a lot of trade, just like the ambassador said. But I think the break was bound to happen. If not now, sometime later. The internal strife, the fact that the issues that were on ground in 1975 are no longer relevant in 2025. And ECOWAS has to move in order to address these changes. We didn't have terrorism in 1975. We didn't have the threat we're having now. We didn't have a lot of unemployment and so many things that are, influencing the decisions or influencing the different African countries that make up ECOWAS. Let's not forget that for us to have a stronger ECOWAS, we need to have stronger political systems in the member states of the ECOWAS. Look around. Elections are not free and fair. We have internal strife. We have almost every country fighting for their own national interest instead of regional interest, which was mostly the reason why we formed ECOWAS. ECOWAS is for, regional integration, trade, and just, for us to band together. We are not doing that because every country is looking out for number one. Number one is themselves. Let's not also forget the influence of the West. Now, we have the Russian influence, we have the we have the Francophone interest. They are all clashing, and there is no way this wasn't bound to happen. So it's bittersweet. It's bittersweet.
Let me bring in Ambassador Joe Keshi in here. How important is it for ECOWAS to move away from some of those old ways of doing things that Ella just mentioned?
No, it's very important. As she rightly observed, if the leaders are concentrate on economic development and industrialization and building up very strong institutions over the last couple of years, I think ECOWAS would have been stronger than it is today. But like I said, we should look when you calculate how many years it took the European Union to get to where we are today, you would understand the challenges that ECOWAS is facing. But I think that ECOWAS has enough experience. What we need to pray for moving forward is that the leaders of today and the leaders of tomorrow will develop the political will to drive the process. It's a question of the process. It took quite some diplomatic maneuvering, some statesmanship to particularly to convince a number of Francophone leaders. I recall that we actually had to bring some to Nigeria, offer them PhDs in some universities as a means of convincing them that they have to be part of the community. So what I'm saying is that moving forward, going into the next 50 years, we need to develop the same statesmanship, persuasion, and convincing everybody that there are benefits to be derived from being a member of the community. And I think most of them realize that there are, benefits actually.
Absolutely.
So it will not depend on the political will. It will depend on the political will to drive the process. It's a process. And as long as the leaders do not properly drive the process, we will continue to have problems. And of course, we need internal security. We need peace and stability in our respective states to be able to move forward. And the crisis we're experiencing from the Sahel, which has caused 3 or 4 members to the 3 members, it's part of what we should expect. But I'm very sure, and I've said it right from the beginning of the crisis, that with time, if ECOWAS begin to put in the building blocks, these countries will come back to ECOWAS.
Ambassador, let me bring in our lead correspondent, Bernerd Akede, who has been covering the celebration, which started about a month ago, was launched in Ghana. You've been following it. We do know that General Yakubu Gowon is the only surviving founding father and happens to be a Nigerian. I want you to talk to me what you felt in that room about the leadership standing of Nigeria in driving ECOWAS. Nigeria is currently chairing the bloc right now.
Fantastic. I think to a large extent, the success of ECOWAS as a sub-regional bloc, and the countries that make up ECOWAS is hinged on the shoulders of Nigeria's performance. I strongly think that, I'm trying to remember the name now, there's a country's leader who said that until Nigeria gets it right, the rest of West African countries, possibly the rest of Africa, will not get it right. Looking back to when the ECOWAS was created, from 75 down to 80s and the 90s, Nigeria played a pivotal role in the function and the structure of ECOWAS. As a matter of fact, I was mentioning today that I remember ECOMOG, that's the military arm of ECOWAS, that's the ECOWAS monitoring group, went in to liberate Liberia during the Civil War, did the same for Sierra Leone, Chad. My late dad was a helicopter pilot and one of the contingents that went to several of these countries.
Not to talk about all of the salaries of civil servants that were paid in the early days of independence. Let's not mention the countries.
So all these countries, while Nigeria performed well and assisted these countries, you could see how these countries saw Nigeria as a big brother and did quite well. So again, Nigeria's success plays a pivotal role in the success of these countries. In my opinion, I think it's time for us to begin to get it right all over again. Again, look at it like you did mention, General Yakubu Gowon, one of the founding fathers, the only surviving founding father. As a matter of fact, one of his colleagues back then, Ella Ezeadilieje, who was the president of Togo, had his son, who is now the president of Togo, seated in that gathering. And then we have President Bola Tinubu, who is also chairing. By the way, he was elected again as a second time in 2025. Wow. So Nigeria does have a very pivotal role to play, as mentioned earlier.
Ella, if you're still with me, my question to you is, what will then be the impact of the pullout of these countries under Nigeria's presidency? Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso are very important countries to this bloc, clearly, and they're going to leave a huge gap, both militarily and perhaps even economically. Should Nigeria be worried about wooing them back, or should Nigeria just let them go and figure out what to do with the rest of the members? Ella, if you can hear me.
Oh, are you speaking to me?
Oh, yes, Ella, I am speaking to you. My question to you is, what should Nigeria do in the case of Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, who have sought to leave the bloc? Should Nigeria try to woo them back? What would be the impact and the gap they would leave behind now that they have decided to exit the bloc?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, this happening under Nigeria's leadership is quite unfortunate, and Nigeria wouldn't be happy that this is happening. And I think Nigeria should do everything possible to woo them back. Now, the first thing that every country considers is national interest. It's of immense interest to these countries to come back into the fold. Don't forget, these are landlocked countries. Don't forget, these countries are benefiting from our, joint effort at stopping terrorism. So leaving you to fight the battles yourself. So Nigeria should be doing everything possible, using diplomacy, even the carrot. We have done the stick, which are the sanctions that caused this in the first place. We did the sanctions, we did, the whole show of force kind of thing, and it didn't work. In fact, it pushed them because they felt Nigeria, or ECOWAS rather, wasn't doing a great job at handling the issues and, stopping corruption and all that. So Nigeria should try as much as possible. Though from where I'm sitting, they seem to be pretty decided on that. And let's not also forget, I don't think this is coming just from these three countries. We are not to forget the Russian influence. We are not to forget the fact that they are military in nature, and you know how the military operates. Now, I was talking to someone, and we're talking about the similarities between this exit and Brexit. Now, Brexit came about as a referendum. They talked to their people and they gathered together and said, okay, some of us are voting to leave, some of us are voting to stay. But these guys took this unilateral decision to go without thinking of the impact on the people. Now, the people of these countries are the ones suffering. The leadership, they're not suffering, they're not feeling it, or they will not feel the impact. But take it from me, in the next few months, in the next few years, when you will be needing visa to visit your family member 500 meters away, don't forget, Niger and Nigeria share borders we have intermarried, we have the same ethnicity. There are so many things that have bound us together,
point, Ella.
going further than 50 years,
Very
going further than 50
point.
years. So I feel that in the next few years, just like, Gowon said, there might be a chance of reconciliation. And if it comes, we need to embrace it with open arms.
It's a very good advice coming from a founding father who doesn't even know how many more years. We don't know if we have him up for even up to 20 years. So it would be great to see how ECOWAS leadership works that out. All right, then. Thank you so much, Ambassador Joe Keshi, for joining us, a renowned technocrat. Ella Ezeadilieje, an international affairs analyst. Thank you.